This is, I did this earlier, clapped really loud. It worked great.
He did, everybody looked
so
up.
I'm not gonna steal your thing. You wanna use it?
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
I'm trusting this is working, correct? Okay. I know that the last meeting, I mentioned that Manuela was going to be running the meeting, and you probably wouldn't be seeing me for a while. She became ill this week, and so we're kind of tag teaming here. She's on the call virtually, and I'll do her presentations here, and then any questions or follow-up, she can chime in, and hopefully that comes through loud and clear. Alrighty, since this is the meeting where you elect the chair, I will start the meeting and we'll do the election, and then I'll turn it over to the lucky chairperson. So call the meeting to order Thursday, February 2nd, 2023 at approximately 7:01 p.m. So roll call, Deveni?
Here.
Friedrich?
Here.
Havilas?
Here.
Honig?
Here.
Irwin? Absent. Kingsworthy? Absent. Leash?
Here.
Nicholas?
Here.
And Ortman.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum, 2 absent and 7 present.
Commissioner Irwin just arrived.
Oh, perfect. We can wait a moment. So
Excuse me.
1 absent and 8 present. Corrected. So the next item on the agenda is the election of officers. And you'll notice on the screen, nominations do not require a motion or a second. Any member may nominate another or themselves for the offices of chair and vice chair / secretary. The nomination can be made by a simple declaration, as you see there. I nominate Commissioner so-and-so for the office. The election of a commissioner to an office must be done by an open vote. We'll do a show of hands as well as voice vote, just to make sure that we have everybody accurately recorded when we take the vote on the candidate. If there's more than one individual nominated for an office, we'll vote in the order they were nominated. First nominee to obtain a majority of votes is elected to that office. We'll vote for chair first, and then I'll turn this over to the chair to conduct the nomination for vice chair secretary. So with that, the floor is open, and we are accepting nominations for chair.
I nominate Commissioner Honig for the office of chair.
Okay. Any other nominations for the office of chair? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nominations are closed, and we will have a vote on Commissioner Honig as chair of the Planning Commission. So I will, we'll do this in 2 ways. So I'm going to do a roll call, but if I can also see hands, just keep your hand up. Those in favor of electing Commissioner Honig to the office of chair, please signify with your hands by raising. All right. And then if you could also verify that when I call your name with aye or nay. Deveni?
Aye.
Friedrich?
Aye.
Havilas?
Aye.
Honig?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Kingsworthy is absent. Leash?
Aye.
Nicholas?
Aye.
And Ortman.
Aye.
Congratulations, ma'am. You have been nominated and successfully selected as chair of the Planning Commission. So with that, I will turn the remainder of the meeting over to you and let you continue with the election process and then the rest of the agenda.
Thank you. Next, we will have the election for the vice chair, if anyone would like to nominate somebody.
I nominate Commissioner Ortman for the office of vice chair.
Any other nominations? Should I do both the roll call vote and,
I think I'm just following the protocol both by hand and by roll call, I guess.
okay, everyone in favor of Commissioner Ortman as vice chair?
Aye.
And will you take a roll call vote?
I can do that. Deveni?
Aye.
Friedrich?
Aye.
Havelas?
Aye.
Honig?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Leash?
Aye.
Nicholas?
Aye.
And Ortman.
Aye.
The motion is carried, so congratulations.
Okay, and next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those, thank you. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of the January 5th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. And next item on the agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals report. Commissioner Friedrich?
Madam Chair, we did not meet.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is communications. Mr. Murdeza?
Yes, we had a number of communications. I believe there were 8, is that correct? From Carol Anderson and other members of the Anderson family. And this is in regard to the second case that you'll be hearing this evening.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is SUP 2301 and SPR 2302. Mr. Murdeza?
I can do that. Also, the communications are on the dais. So we had our... We'll wait until Steve brings the presentation back up, hopefully. There we go. Alrighty, so first case, SUP 2301 and SPR 2302. 1012 North Lansing, SDI zoning district. Future land use is industrial, and the request is for a special use permit for an adult use marijuana grower and retailer facility. It's currently a vacant building. Mr. Timmerman is the property owner. The applicant is Rio's Happy Tree. You may recall that you have entertained a case study with Rio's Happy Tree in the past for a different use, and they are proposing to change and pivot a bit with their proposed uses for that particular facility. So same location on North Lansing. The site has not changed. The uses surrounding the site are all industrial. They're all zoned as SDI. And you can see that they're a warehouse, auto repair, storage facility, and a machine shop. A couple of pictures. This is the building looking southeast. And a photo of the building looking northeast. So there's a number, because it's a marijuana proposal, there's a number of conditions and standards to meet in order for you to consider approving the request. So we'll go through that. I'll try not to bore you too much, but we do have to do our due diligence in terms of matching up the requirements to what has been submitted. So as you can see, there's a number of special use conditions. It is a permitted use under a special use in that particular district. As I indicated, most of the uses are industrial in that location. Also, it's compatible with surrounding uses because of that. The use has characteristics that the adjacent properties are accustomed to. The proposed building and site upgrades will increase the aesthetics. The exterior of the building will be improved according to the applicant. There should not be excessive noise pollution, noise, waste, et cetera, within 300 feet of the site. It's not hazardous to the adjacent property owners. They do have requirements to meet odor and noise control, et cetera, and they have certified that they will be doing so. It also needs to be able to be adequately served by utilities, and that is the case in this location. The property and the proposed project is anticipated not to hinder or discourage the appropriate development or use of the surrounding properties or degrade their property values. So and it is consistent with zoning. They must, as one of the conditions, they must comply with MRTMA and the MRTMA standards with the state and also with the city in terms of licensing. So that will be one of the conditions that will be recommended for your consideration at the end of this presentation. They are proposing to be a co-located grower and retailer, which again, I believe their previous desire was to be a micro retailer, micro business. And this is the pivot. So they're looking at it being a co-located facility. They meet those requirements per the zoning ordinance. They're sufficiently set back from the property lines. Storage and disposal plan, I believe that your packet had some information in there, and you'll see this as we go through where there's some comments listed in bold on the right-hand side of the matrix here. Since your packet went out, the applicant has provided some additional information consistent with what they were proposing to do and what their requirements are. So one of the pieces of information that we did obtain after the packet is that they did provide a storage and disposal plan. So they met that requirement. That will not be a condition being recommended tonight since it has been met. They don't plan on storing overnight outside materials, et cetera, consistent with the requirements. Signage can't depict marijuana or marijuana-related activities. They've asserted that they will meet that won't be an issue. Odor control, they provided an odor mitigation plan, but one of the requirements or one of the conditions will be that we'll have to have approval by the county mechanical inspector that they actually meet those odor control standards with the materials that they install. They're not located within 1,000 feet of a public or private K-12 school, so they're not in one of those excluded zones, so that is met. There's some requirements in terms of hours of operation, so they have certified that they will not be open between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m., and they will not receive deliveries between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. That second one, the deliveries, was one that we weren't clear about when the packet went out, so they have since supplied information to confirm that they will meet that requirement as well. So again, that is taken off the list of potential conditions at the end of this proposal. The proposal is located within the industrial district, so it is consistent with the character and the requirements thereof. The exterior appearance is compatible. Interior storage, so no marijuana is visible from the exterior. There's no retail, or there's no windows in the establishment, so that shouldn't be an issue. Again, there's several items here that they have since met, since the packet went out. One is they have provided information that consumption will not be permitted on site, and that safety, security, surveillance protocols, including monitoring of internal and exterior areas by camera and AV, will be kept for 30 days. And so that requirement has been met as well. They've submitted a floor plan that the lobby and waiting area and the sales area are separated from all the back of the house, so to speak, operations. So they've met that condition. They will provide pickup services, but the proposed site and floor plan does not indicate any proposed drive-through window. So they, assuming that they follow their plans, there's no anticipation for a drive-through, so that's not an issue, and it is met, that condition is met and consistent with zoning requirements. Again, another item that was submitted to staff after the packet went out, and that is they've asserted that the applicant has said that there won't be consumption of tobacco or alcohol products on site, and they'll have signs conveying that message as well. So that is met too. Facades are mostly opaque, so metal siding, asphalt shingling, and that's all in regard to cultivation occurring within an enclosed building with opaque materials on the outside, so folks can't be looking inside to see what's going on. That's met. There's a requirement that the activities be conducted in a manner to minimize any adverse impacts on the city sanitary sewer. So the Public Works Department provided comments regarding this, and that will be a condition of their approval that they adhere to those comments or address those comments adequately. They're only applying for one grower license, so the standard is met in terms of each zoning lot, no more than 3 stacked grower licenses may be in operation. So they have met that requirement as well. Site plan review, just breeze through this quickly. Here's an overview of the site, or a plan view of the site, with the building indicated in the southwest corner of that drawing, or at least as we're looking at it, so to speak. Another view of the building and surrounding vegetation, driveway plan, access, etc. This was all in your packet, so that should be familiar. A couple of outside elevations. Again, landscape plan. They've met the requirements of the landscape landscape portion of the ordinance, so shouldn't be an issue at all. So the applicant complies with all plan information requirements listed in section 154.613 of the zoning ordinance. The lot width complies with the minimum lot width required in SDI zoning districts. So the lot is 100 feet wide, and it's only required to be 50 feet. Setbacks aren't regulated within the district. The building height, 20 feet, does not exceed the maximum permitted, which is 75 feet. There's no encroachments. Existing parking configuration with 2 existing drives are grandfathered and comply with the maximum driveway width, so there's no concerns with vehicular parking standards. They've met the bicycle parking standards that are required based on their conditions to have 1. They're providing 2. Landscaping and fencing. The landscape plan shows an area within the first lot layer along the 2 street frontages, both in terms of Fortis and North Lansing streets. There's no proposed walls or fences except for screens as explained. So the screens include opaque fences from both frontages. while they normally would be required to screen the parking lot because they're making no changes to the parking lot, what they have is sufficient. If they were to make some changes, they would have been required to meet that requirement. Off-street loading, storage, drive-through, et cetera. There's no other requirements other than the dumpster enclosure in this particular zoning district, so that has been met. They've provided a detailed signage plan. It will be reviewed by the Department of Building Safety when the application is made for signage, but otherwise that appears to meet the requirements. They've also indicated a detailed lighting plan, and that'll conform with Section 96.13 of the Mount Pleasant City Code. So after saying all of that and giving you a thorough review of this particular application, we come down to the staff recommendation. And the staff recommendation is to approve SUP 23-01 and SPR 23-02, subject to the following conditions. The applicant obtain a marijuana license through the state and maintain compliance with all applicable state statutes and rules at all times, including those specific to co-located establishments. That the county's mechanical inspector approves the building air handling system and finds it in compliance with section 154.410.B.4, paren B, paren 7. And the applicant shall comply with the requirements of building safety, public safety, and public works as those comments have been submitted.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Murdeza?
I would also, if you have any technical questions, we can have Manuela jump in here in case there's any additional questions about the application itself. I know she's worked quite closely with the applicants who are in the audience as well.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? If the applicant would like to come up, or is, here we go.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say thank you to the city council and the commissioners for working with us in the zoning department as we pivot from the micro business. Micro business actually allowed us to grow more plants than we're proposing in this proposal and to sell those plants. With the pivot, we're actually allowed to sell other people's products, so it's more of just a business pivot than a whole new license. We're just switching licenses. I want to thank my neighbors for coming up here today. I know they have some things to say. Just wanted to put any fears at ease, and we discussed it previously, so thank you all.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thanks. Anyways, I will open up public comment if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment on this.
George Tolis, 1205 North Lansing, and I am also representing Vern Hogue. We owned a building right to the north and west of the proposed deal. As far as your smell ordinance, how do they monitor that? Because Otterbine's building, I mean, man, it just stinks over to our place. I mean, they're going to be small, but I don't know how they monitor that, or do they? I mean, I'd rather smell the sewer plant myself, but.
I guess I can take a stab at that, and I'll see if Manuela wants to jump in as well. But typically, I believe it's on a complaint basis. I mean, once the system is certified to meet the requirements in terms of odor control.
Right.
If there is an issue, we have in the past gone over, met with the business itself and found, asked them, are you doing something different? What's going on? I know Brian Kench tends to be, our building official tends to be the point person in terms of trying to work with the businesses to comply with odor.
Okay.
Yep. Manuela, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll just say that the mechanical inspector in the county
And
also
we
has to
can't
look
hear
at
you.
the-
Are you muted? You're not muted on this end.
Can you hear me? I unmuted myself.
Well,
Can you hear me?
Well, that's something you can look into or let me know.
yep.
But
we'll do
we've
that.
been on the north end for over 40 years. I've got multiple properties there, so just hoping that, everything will be, I don't want a lot of ruckus around there, people checking out, stealing stuff. So that's my main concern, but I mean, they gotta do what they gotta do, but that's my main concern. Like I said, the smell is just, you can ask anybody in there, it is so strong. My God. So that's my main concern, but hopefully Steve will do a good job. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to speak?
My name's Chris Pullman. I'm 105 North Fancher, right behind Steve's place there, or in front of it. My concern is, I was talking to Darren Howard at Dagwoods, and Darren was talking to me too, is what George was talking about is theft. We don't want all the crime in the neighborhood. We do have, Chris Williams is gone across the road. He was a drug dealer for many years. We had a lot of traffic, a lot of people going in and out of the neighborhood. He's in prison. He's gonna be out in about a year, maybe a year and a half. Don't need a neighborhood coming back being all rowdy and crazy and nuts like it has been. We have a very, very, really quiet neighborhood now at 5 o'clock at night. Everything's really quiet. Weekends, it's real peaceful. Ryan across the road, Ryan Gruce is asking me the same thing. He said he wants to keep it that way. My concern, number one concern is me, is the city hasn't blacktopped those roads. If we're gonna have traffic going in there, the dust is insane, already crazy. So we're gonna get a lot of dust on top of the smell of the marijuana that we already have now, that I already say it two ways, we got shitty smell. Marijuana shitty smell. We got the sewer plant and now we got the marijuana plant. And it stinks really bad. I was plowing snow Sunday and it was really, really bad. Everybody comes in my shop and they ask me, I said, who the hell's smoking pot? I said, that gray building right down there. So that gray building, and they, okay, they don't understand it because they don't know what's going on down there, but it is pretty strong down there. I don't think Steve's gonna have anything that, big amount, but I'm more concerned about the traffic of people and dust on the roads. The roads are bad. We're trying to keep our cars clean, got a lot of stereo equipment in my shop, a lot of money in it. Kevin just bought the building next door. He tries to keep his stuff clean. He's got a lot of money invested inside the building. He's always talking, man, this road's dusty all the time. That's my concern. So far it's been going great and I don't have any complaints. Just worried about the dust and keeping everything down and keeping the neighborhood, we got cameras everywhere. Everybody put up a lot of cameras. So, and Ryan, everybody's been asking me these questions, so I'm just here to see what you guys thought on that,
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else that would like to comment? For this particular hearing? Is there any online comments, Mr. Merdeza?
There's nothing on, through the email. And I'll see if Manuela can join us again. Everything's unmuted on our side, and I believe on her side too, but Manuela,
hear
do you
me?
want to give that a shot again? No?
Can you hear me? No?
Okay, I will close public comment and open up discussion. Does anyone have anything to say or a motion? Or questions?
Mr. Rodeza, do you know if there's been any record of any crime increasing around other marijuana establishments in Mount Pleasant?
Not that we're aware of at this point in time.
Okay.
It's still, in fairness, it is still a fairly new industry, but for those that are open now, I'm not aware of any, spike or increase that's been brought to our attention.
You might wish to comment again, if that's.
Okay, if you want to come up to, if you could come up to the podium.
We're basically secluded where we're at, and all these other places are on Mission Street, Pickard Street, so, and, the retail, we're kind of back at no man's land, so, you can come back there and about do anything. So, we are secluded back there. Like Chris said, it's very quiet. You hardly see any cars on weekends or anything, so that's my comment.
Thank you. Any other questions or motion or comments?
I'll move to approve SUP 2301, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant must obtain the marijuana state licenses from the state and maintain compliance with all applicable state statutes and rules at all times, including those specific to co-located establishments. 2, the county's mechanical inspector approves the building's air handling system and finds it in compliance with section 154, 410, B4, B7. 3, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of building safety, and public works.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the motion, regardless of what that is? Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is SCP-2302 and SBR-2303. Mr. Murdeza?
Okay, before we start again, we had Manuela log off and log back on. I don't know if that'll help, but
Is this
you want to
working?
try that, Manuela?
Is this working?
Still not.
No.
Does it matter? I know we have like the presentation up right now. Does it matter if Zoom's showing or the presentation? And does that have any relevance to whether we can hear her or not? I wouldn't think so, but I'm just wondering.
We can ask Steve to play around with that. That's me. We may have to do this old school where I just put her on speaker and then I'll just put it up to the microphone if we have. Whoa. Gotta love technology.
We're entering the matrix.
Testing audio. It's working.
Creating more problems than it's solving.
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
If I turn this on.
Can you hear me? Testing, 1, 2. Testing audio
I can hear you on my computer,
on the computer.
but unfortunately, we're going to get feedback. You're not coming through the system.
Okay. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. I knew this was going to be a little clunky. Well, why don't I start the presentation? If we have questions, et cetera, I'll see if I can get Manuela on the phone, and then we can have a kind of an old school dialogue that way and see if that might work, eh? All right.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you for your patience here. All right, next case is SUP 23-02 and SPR 23-03. So this is at 1006 Bruce Street, currently zone CD3. There's no special requirements. Future land use is shown as residential. The request is for a special use permit and site plan review for two-family dwelling or duplex in that location. It's currently vacant. The existing building suffered a fire back in November, and the proposal is to rebuild a duplex in that location. Property owner is McGuire Family Investments, LLC, same as the applicant, and the site area is about 5,200 square feet. So here's a site plan view of the site, residential all around. All the zoning for around that site is CD3. Here's a photo of the site from Bruce Street looking north on the left, and from the side alleyway looking southwest toward Bruce Street, showing the damage created by the fire. So again, general standards for special use permits include that it's permitted in the district, and it indeed is permitted by SUP. All the uses are residential, mostly single-family homes in the particular area. There's already two duplexes within 300 feet of the proposed use, and a total of 6 duplexes within the surrounding blocks. As I said, all uses are residential, so this would be compatible from a residential perspective with the character of the neighborhood. Special use shall not interfere with the general enjoyment of the surrounding area. It has similar characteristics that adjacent properties are accustomed to. Will not have an adverse impact on surrounding neighborhood within 300 feet. Having only one unit entrance will be located along Bruce Street, helps with keeping the single-family character. So there is a principal frontage entryway to the duplex. There is also a proposed garage off of the side alley for 2 vehicles, along with some driveway outside of the garage. So theoretically, you could have 2 vehicles per each duplex parked there, one in the garage, one outside the garage. Proposed use is not hazardous to adjacent property. It's not expected to produce adverse effects. If the occupants of the use, the tenants, generate such impacts, the applicant states that such potential repeated violations may result in the termination of the lease contract. The special use shall be adequately served by the existing capacity of public facilities and services, and that is met. It's proposed to be a 2-unit building, which is replacing 2 single-unit buildings. So the number of units on the site will be consistent. It's 2 for 2. And there is adequate capacity to serve this development, much like there was in the previous iteration. Proposed use shall not substantially injure the financial value of the surrounding properties and not hinder or discourage the appropriate development or use of adjacent properties. So the applicant again provided a statement suggesting the proposed use will in fact enhance the surrounding properties due to its proposed design, which will be built consistent with the character of the area and will also bring the property into compliance with the current zoning ordinance. Each dwelling unit shall have a floor area of at least 1,000 square feet. There's 2 proposed units will have the same square footage, which exceeds the 1,000 square foot minimum. No basement is being proposed. Each unit shall be functionally independent with separate living and sleeping, eating, cooking, etc. Provisions. They will be separated. They're both units will be located in the same overall building footprint, but each is separate. They have separate garages, etc. No common interior space will be provided. The 2 units will be divided by the enclosed garages, which are separated by a firewall. Therefore, this requirement is met. Interior access will be limited. There won't be interior access between the 2 units. And again, as noted above, they're divided by 2 enclosed garages separated by a firewall, so there's no interior access. Site plan review, you can see Bruce Street, the side alley, and then on the other side is another alley. There's residences to the north, and then on the other side of that alley, and then the next street over, which I believe is Elm Street. The proposed elevations. So the applicant complies with all plan information requirements listed in section 154.613 of the zoning ordinance. The lot or the site, the project complies with the lot width, which is a minimum of 50 feet, so it's 53 feet wide. Proposed impervious surface coverage is also compliant, reaching the maximum 55% allowed in this district. The project conforms to the setback requirements as noted here. The proposed building height, number of stories, facade entrance, building facade location, et cetera, are all compliant with the minimum standards. Steps are being proposed as an allowed encroachment into the required front and rear setbacks. So that's to gain access to the site or to the interior of the buildings. Vehicular parking standards. Parking is located, or entrance to the parking garage is located along the alleyway east of the property line. Each unit includes 1 garage, as well as vehicular parking space outside of that garage before the alley itself. The driveway was designed in a way that it can accommodate 1 additional car parked in front of the garage door. These conditions are compliant with the standards for the CD3 district. There's no required bicycle parking standards for this particular proposed use, which is a 2-family dwelling. Proposal includes a landscaped area along the first lot layer, and a minimum of 30% of this area must be landscaped in compliance with section 154.413. There's no landscape plan that was provided, so there will be a recommendation to have a condition that a landscape plan be provided as a condition of approval if you move in that direction. There's no proposed screens. Off-street loading, storage, et cetera. There's no proposed trash receptacles in the submitted site plan, and there is not a requirement that, unlike some of the other higher density residential units like rooming and boarding dwellings, et cetera, that there be screening or a trash receptacle location, et cetera, shown on the plans. All signage will be reviewed and approved under a separate permit from the Building Safety Department, consistent with what's required in the district. Applicant has not indicated any plans to install or modify lighting, but they will, if they do so, they will need to conform with section 96.13 of the city code, and that is typically checked when there's a building permit pulled and the building plans are reviewed, excuse me, are reviewed by our building official. We received, as I indicated, a number of pieces of correspondence. All of those pieces of correspondence, which again were on your dais this evening, were in opposition to approval. Because the project meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance for duplexes in the CD3 district, staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. ensure that the proposed landscape covers at least 30% of the first lot layer as defined in the zoning ordinance, and that such landscape complies with section 154.413 of the ordinance, and the applicant shall comply with the requirements of building safety, public safety, and public works as submitted. And that concludes the report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murdeza?
Mr. Murdeza, do you know how many bedrooms are in each one of those units?
There are 2 bedrooms in each unit.
Mr. Murdeza, I have a question just for clarification. Is there still a requirement for owner occupancy with duplexes?
There is not. That was a text amendment, I believe, that was enacted a year or a year and a half ago, maybe.
It was August
You may recall that
2021.
when Jacob was here. So I don't know the exact date.
Can
Okay,
you hear
thank
me?
you. August of 2021. So that was a requirement that had originally been in the ordinance, but has since been removed.
Any, go
Two
ahead.
questions. Question number one, you said that there's 2 bedrooms. Does that mean 4 people can live in that residence? Or does that mean only 2 people, unrelated people, can live there? And then the other question is, if 4 people can live there, you only have parking spots for 2, 2 and 2. So if you have 4 and 4, there's 8 people with only limited spots for parking. Question number one. Question number two, you say that there's duplexes, again, close by within 300 square feet. How many of those other duplexes are 2-story buildings? Because right now, again, you have the current building that was there was only 1.5 story, and now you're proposing a 2-story building. For the people, again, who are homeowners in that building, in that neighborhood, I did not know how many other duplexes in there, or how many other buildings total are 2-story buildings, looking into a homeowner that's lived there for X number of years. So those 2 questions.
Okay, I'll take the second one first. I'll take a stab at the second one first. I believe that the development as proposed is 1.5 stories. It's not a full 2-story. And you can see that from the plan view as well. There appears to be a similar sized dwelling adjacent immediately to the west of this site. A number of the other homes in that area or duplexes in that area are single story, but I know of at least one that should be a similar height as this one, which is immediately adjacent next door. I don't have a count. Sorry. Okay, so, yeah. In terms of, so I don't have a count in terms of the number of duplexes per se that are 2-story in that particular area. The other question that you have is, has to do with how many people can occupy that, et cetera. So we have no more than two unrelated individuals. You could have a family of 3 or 4, right? But you can only have 2 unrelated individuals in a residence, in a residence such as this. So that in and of itself would limit the number of at least unrelated individuals in that particular household. To the point that you made, yes, there's the potential to have 4 vehicles. We don't typically regulate the number of cars that folks can have outside of, perhaps what they have in their own household in residential neighborhoods in general. So the fact that you have 2 units that can accommodate 2 cars, there's nothing that in the ordinance that speaks to limiting the number of vehicles. If somebody was a car collector, regardless of where they lived, that they could only have 1 vehicle or 5 vehicles or whatever. So I understand what you're saying in terms of, is there sufficient parking? It depends, and it's difficult to predict. what the car ownership patterns would be for any individual. Some folks may not own a car or may only have one and prefer to use bicycle transportation or other means of transportation. So I'm not sure that, saying that you have this many bedrooms and you could potentially have this many people living there and you have a limited number of vehicle spaces is a good predictor of how many vehicles could actually occur in that location. But, it would be speculative on my part to say whether or not there's sufficient parking on site. However, since we have removed the on-street parking requirement overnight in town during the wintertime, et cetera, there is that potential as well in any of our neighborhoods as an alternative if folks had more than, say, one vehicle or two vehicles for their particular dwelling. That's about the best I can do here. Oh, okay. And Manuela says that the minimum amount of off-street parking is not regulated, as I mentioned, so technically the applicant did not need to provide parking. However, they are providing 2 enclosed parking within the garage, plus the space outside. The drawings do not contain all dimensions, but the submitted plan was built to scale, and she has the measurements if that is a question too. I know that those measurements weren't on the plans provided.
Mr. Mordeza, do we have any regulations or limitations for people parking in alleyways versus on a regular road?
They cannot block the alleyway. You can't just park and leave your car in the middle of the alley. So that would be, an enforcement issue if somebody just left their car there and it blocked or impeded passage of the alley.
And you can also not yard park, so.
That is correct.
Is there a history of code violations for this property? If you happen to know.
Excuse me?
Is there a history of code violations at this property?
We did a quick look. I believe that we found 13 code violations in the past over a period of time. 2 of those were attributed to the current owner, and the rest were attributed to previous owners of the property. According to our records, the 2 most recent under the current owner were resolved rather quickly in terms of the code violation that happened there.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Mordeza? If the applicant would like to come up.
I'm David McGuire. I live at 416 South Washington here in Mount Pleasant. I've owned this property, I probably should know that, but I think since 2019. And we experienced a fire on November 1st, and I have replacement cost insurance, which is requiring me to rebuild a similar structure. Obviously, I can't rebuild what was there because of the ordinance. So we have gone to great lengths, and I might add great expense. I had an architect figure out what we could put there. As far as the 1.5 stories, that's the way we can conform with the setbacks, put 2 two-bedroom units back on the property, and allow for parking, which was not there before, I might add. There was one-car garage there. They parked alongside the alley. We're eliminating that. We're putting a garage in. And we're putting a parking spot in front of each garage. And as Mr. Mordeza said, the zoning ordinance, and I didn't have anything to do with the zoning ordinance, says that there's no parking requirements. So actually, we went over and above there. I think we've gone over and above as best we can to get 2 units on that property because that's what we had. And that's I'm trying to work between your zoning ordinance and my insurance company, and they're being pretty good. But so I have to put in there what fits the requirements, and I believe we've done that. As far as the density, it's only 2 unrelated. The way we built that, if you've noticed, one we only have one facing Bruce Street, the other faces the alley, which is not optimal, the back alley. But we have them separated with a firewall in the garage. My intention is to legally condo them. So I don't know if the market's gonna allow it or not, but it's a possibility they could both be owner-occupied homes at some point, because we'll make them a condo and they could be sold off, and that would be my preference, quite frankly. But, so they may be rentals, but they could possibly be single-family homes if we could sell them off. And I'm certainly open to any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Oh, thank you. And I will open up public comment if anyone from the public would like to, if you'd like to come up to the podium.
As he's approaching the podium there, let me just follow up on your previous question about violations. I have a note from Manuela here that indicates that there were code violations, 5 of which were related to parking and an inoperated vehicle in the alley. However, all were resolved, and then as I indicated, 2 of the violations occurred since the applicant acquired the site. One about a vehicle parking in the alley, and another regarding furniture that was placed next to the curb, and those were resolved after those complaints or those violations were issued, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I just want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to express our concerns. And I want to thank our neighborhood for showing up. Everyone over there is in our neighborhood. We have a lot of concerns regarding that SUP. I personally live behind the property for nearly 30 years now. I'd like to express our absolute and complete opposition to this project. There is not room in there. Our neighborhood has been peaceful until recently it changed hands. More recently, the property was burned down, and it took 4 fire departments to come simply because of the density of the neighborhood. They were concerned other properties were going to catch fire, and several of us were out having to hose down our own properties because of the fact that it might catch fire. It was a concern. And the CD3 district's codes are in place to ensure the traditional character of the neighborhood and to promote neighborhood stability. But the variance application states that the decisions are based upon finding reasonable evidence that the variance will not be detrimental to adjacent property or the surrounding neighborhood, and it will not impair the intent or purpose of Chapter 154 of the zoning ordinance. But we have several concerns regarding the application in itself. The proposed construction will not improve the character of the neighborhood. The previous structure is laid out so the front of it faced Bruce Street, which is the style of all the houses in that neighborhood. The front all faces the street. In this particular design, the front of the other house will be facing directly onto our property past the alley, but it's like adding 5 additional windows, a new door, a porch, lighting, all that. That's never been there for 30 years. And the driveway in the plans, there's no way, there's no actual dimensions on it, so, and there's no way that that's gonna accommodate a full-size vehicle that people have nowadays without it sticking out into the right-of-way of the alley. You're talking 17-foot minimum, and I don't see how he gets that in that area. In section 9.3, there's only 1 door mentioned on the plans. I'm thinking a duplex has 2 entrances, and the other one isn't even mentioned. It's on the back, basically right into our property. And also the number of occupants existing in the application says 6. That may have been how many people would have been allowed, but in reality, at the time, for the last 2 years, there's only been 3 adults that lived on that premise, and they've caused so many problems that the police department has been dispatched to that address over 60 times in just the last 2 years. And that's not including the times the tribal police were called in. So the thought of potentially allowing up to 5 occupants, which this states, per unit, maximum number of occupants per unit, 5, 10 people crammed into this little tiny space, in a tiny lot, I just don't see it. And if it's in there that you can go up to 5, that means, well, you could have 10 people potentially. Also, the proposed structure seems to be almost up to the 55% impervious surface coverage, leaving almost no outdoor space for any of the occupants at all, except for the alleys. And under review criteria on the application, section 9.2, compatibility includes environmental effects. All of those listed will be negatively affected, there is no doubt. Up to the possibility of up to 10 occupants will generate more noise, more light pollution into all our yards and into our homes. Definitely the traffic and the trash problem and the parking are going to abound as they have continually up until the place is burned down. This is just not going to be compatible with our neighborhood. A duplex, you know, like I said before, has the 2 units, and one of them's like facing directly right into our property. Section 9.5 states that the tenant parking will be accommodated in the garage. That's right off of the application. So I'm thinking, I mean, I know you've discussed it a little bit, but it says that tenant parking will all be accommodated in the garage. Well, I guess then you can only be allowed 1 vehicle, but that's not even practical or enforceable, as you've said. The applicant states the activity generated by the occupants might produce adverse effects such as traffic and noise. Well, it has in the past, in that we've suffered through 2 years of adverse effects caused by this property becoming a rental. Maximizing the building footprint on the lot will without any doubt produce more problems, more parking problems, add light pollution and noise, and leaving the occupants that would reside there no outdoor space for activities except for being in the alleys. The lot is very small. And the maintenance and repair, it said it's going to be upkept. Well, the demonstration we've had for the past 2 years, there's literally been broken windows, never replaced. There's been doors that have been ripped off hinges, just dangling and left there. Most of the neighborhood has felt very unsafe walking past that property even because of the situations that are ongoing there. I'd like to just say that, you know, and also there's no indication on the site plan for the containing refuse, and I know it mentioned that it didn't have to be, but that's been one of the worst problems in that particular site. People there would throw their garbage right out in the alley, right out in the yard. I've had their garbage in my yard before. I don't know why people don't take care of their garbage, but I mean, there's no availability to. I'd like to know if there's going to be a duplex there that people's trash are going to be not in the alley and not in their yard. I mean, that's all I guess I have to say. So I just want to thank you for your time, and I think there's some other people who'd like to speak. Thank
What
you.
was your name again, sir? I don't know if you.
Mark Anderson.
Mark Anderson, okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other questions or anything?
If anyone else would like to speak?
Madam Chair, I can, I know it came up during the comments about, and I mentioned that in my earlier remarks about the scale, right? Scale of the project, or scale, the dimensions, right? So, and I kind of glossed over that, but if you are interested, and again, just as an FYI, right? So the garage area is 11 feet 6 inches by 23 feet. And this is off of the drawings or the plans that were submitted, even though they didn't have the dimensions shown on that. The parking area in front of the garage is 12 feet by 22 feet. Zoning requires 9 feet by 18 feet when maneuvering at 90 degrees, so when you have to pull out and such. So both of those proposed spaces exceed the required dimensions, and I just wanted to clarify that since that had been brought up, and I didn't mention that earlier, so.
Thank you. Please feel free to come up to the podium. Hello.
I'm Carol Anderson. Thank you for the opportunity to address all these issues. The need for the SUP, special use permit variance, in itself explains that our neighborhood isn't zoned for a duplex. The negative impact it would have, if passed, will harm the neighbors by no parking available, new noise pollution, new light pollution, new safety concerns walking or driving in the alley. The landlord has no concern for the neighborhood, which history has shown. The landlord has no interest in our neighborhood. He will not be affected by the negative impact of this SUP. He doesn't live in the neighborhood. The Planning Commission role is to protect the neighborhoods. The best option is a single-family, one-story home. The overcrowding is already an issue. A duplex would multiply the problem. The parking must be addressed. Light pollution must be addressed. Screening of the tenants must be addressed. The trash must be addressed. Trash thrown in the alley is not an option. A second story would invade the privacy of the adjacent properties. City Code Table 154-405A alone has 5 articles that are non-compliant. In closing, commissioners, please put yourself in our shoes and honestly answer. If a 2-story duplex was built directly behind your home by a landlord who has proven he has total disregard for the neighborhood, his tenants, the problems his tenants have created, the upkeep of the property, the safety of the neighbors, and where there's no parking except the alley, would you ask your planning commission to deny this SUP? Would you want it built behind you? If the answer is no, then please do just that. Use your power to keep the new neighborhood as the city codes have deemed it previously. The application is incomplete, has factual errors, is non-compliant on so many articles. It should be easy decision to deny. It is best for the neighborhood to allow a 1-story, single-family home, not a duplex. Can I see by a show of hands how many here are opposed to having this in our neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Good evening, esteemed members of the commission. I made an outline of things to say. I didn't have anything really written down word for word. It's kind of a complex.
Excuse me, could we get your name
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
address? Thank you.
My name's Scott Weber. I own 1016 Bruce Street. If you look at the graphic, you see it's the house directly to the west of the proposed duplex, that monstrosity that is all mine. I've owned it since 2010. I do reside there with my significant other, and I clearly share the longest property line with Mr. McGuire's property. My house is ridiculously huge. It's been described as the biggest house on the west side. It was like that when I bought it. I didn't do it. And then when you see it next to that proposed property, it's like, my goodness, I guess my house isn't that big after all. Because it's covering a lot of space there. The people that spoke before me spoke to the problems that we've had with the people that lived there before, not the people prior to Mr. McGuire owning it. It was owner occupied then, I believe, but they were quiet, respectful, and easy to get along with. The reason for that, I believe, is because it's tough to get a good tenant when your house is on a dirt alley on the west side. There is no parking or in or out other than that alley. And how many people here have a 1-car garage? Do you ever park in it? Really? You're like the first, man. I want your autograph. I have a 1-car garage. There's no room to park in there. I've got a refrigerator in there, a drill press, a saw, a deep freeze, toolboxes. I couldn't park in there if I had to. And I think that's typical. You're out of character with everybody else because you put stuff in the garage. It's storage. People with a 2-car, sure. Well, 1-car, it just, our lives are cluttered as Americans. We got stuff. And I think it's true for everybody. But finding a good renter when you're on what is not the premier part of town and it's on a dirt alley and the back house facing the neighbor's fence, and the driveway or the garage side of it facing other neighbors' fences and backyards, it's not really what you look for in your dream home, you know? If you had your druthers, you'd live somewhere else, very likely. So he's not be able to get the cream of the crop of tenants. He never has, he never will. Even with a new house, it might be better, but Mr. McGuire has, in a business sense, done something wise in that he looks to get his direct deposits from the state for people that have state assistance for their rental needs, and that doesn't always get you the best tenant. They're not really concerned with the character, upholding the character of a neighborhood or the property, the structure, because they tend to view it as temporary housing, kind of like college students don't really respect a lot of the places they live in this town. Not that I think you would put college students in there. I don't think they would want to because it's not close to campus. But there's other people that, well, we can go live there and the state will pay for it. And we let our pit bulls tear up the trash and scatter it down the alley. I speak from experience from the prior structure. It's that people in that position, they're not really concerned with the neighbors or the look of the place. They're planning on moving on. And that's, you know, that's not good. I own my house. I've owned it since 2010. I know the other people along the alley own their properties. It is primarily owner occupied. And so we take some pride in our residents. And in the past, everyone that's lived there parks in the alley. Sometimes they block it. Sometimes you have to drive up on somebody's grass to get around them. But it has absolutely limited everybody in the neighborhood's use of the alley. Personally, I have a gate in the back fence along the alley, and I have a little garage shed that extends to it that I fit my mower in and a couple motorcycles. And we use the alley, obviously, to get in, access anything in that back garage, but also we built a little brick patio back there and to load things in and out or plants for the garden. We use the alley to, you know, stop, load things in through the gate. And then we're there and we're gone. We don't block it off, but we need to get through it sometimes. And when there's a bunch of cars parked in it, it makes it really tough, if not impossible, to go that way. And that, I think, is a valid concern. So he can't get the best renters, and the ones that he does get tend not to be very respectful of their neighbors. And we come to the reason of why would he want to build a duplex on that little lot? It's not a big lot on the west side. The amount of money that it will take to build it, the property value will not go up to that during his lifetime or mine. That's just the character of the neighborhood, sad to say it. I tried to sell my house a couple of years ago for a pretty reasonable price, and I just had no offers at all. But you know, that's okay. I'm living there and I like the house and I get along with all the neighbors. That house, the structures that were there and the renters of it were the problems in the neighborhood. Mr. Anderson said there were 60 police calls, and I don't think that included ambulances. And I'm telling you, I got a front row seat to all of it. And I've gotten to know a few police officers go and talk to, what's going on over here? And it was always something. And he could say, well, those tenants are gone. And yes, thank God. Are the next ones going to be much better? Who can say? If they feel that their only option is to rent a house on an alley on the west side, they may not be a better tenant. They may feel like this is what I got to do for now, and later, if I do better, I can move somewhere else that's more, conducive to space and comfort. And that's not his fault. He got what he got. The other issue is, why is it being proposed? Because of his insurance company. I talked to Dave. I know Dave personally. Me and Dave get along. I consider him a friend. And there's been a lot of times the police weren't called because I called Dave and said, Dave, you got an issue over here. Probably want to get on top of it. So, okay, cool. And he does. He's been responsible in that regard. But when this all came about and it burned down, it was like, geez, Dave, what's going to happen? And he's like, well,
I'd like to get this much out of it, and the insurance company made him an offer that, to buy him out, that he didn't accept. He proposed a different amount, and from what I'm told, the insurance company made no attempt to negotiate. They said, no, we're gonna build one there. Well, I don't know how many of you might be hip to building costs of what it would cost to build a duplex at this time, but I guarantee you it's $250,000 or up. And he requested a lot less than that. And the insurance company said, nope, we're gonna build. I don't understand that. That seems to me that it would be a slam dunk. They get out of it cheaper. Maybe they have some sort of a tax write-off where they get it, able to write it all off if they build, whereas if they give a cash settlement, they don't. I don't know enough about it, but I know that I don't think they're being reasonable. And so when Dave told me about this, I said, well, what's gonna happen? He says, well, I have to go in front of the planning commission for a special use permit. And I said, is that, he said, well, they're usually granted. I said, well, now I'm gonna go and object to it, nothing personal. I'm gonna be against it because I don't want a duplex there. And it's right on top of me, which was always been a problem. They'll have to observe more of a setback, but still, it's a big structure right next to me. And I said, well, what happens if they deny you this special use permit? He said, well, they'll either have to pay me off or build me a comparable unit on a different piece of property that I own. I said, well, wouldn't you prefer that? And he's like, heck yeah, I would. Either one of those options. I'm like, so why are you even proposing this? He's like, well, I kind of have to I have to play along with the insurance company to get anything out of them. Now, well, I understand that, but Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you feel differently. But I think he would be better off, and he told me he'd be better off if it were denied. And then he'd go somewhere else because he'll never get his money back out of the west side. The rents are lower, the property values are lower. If he built this on a different piece of property, he would get more rent out of it. He would be able to resell it for more money. And if they gave him a cash buyout, well, he could invest it. I am pretty sure there's going to be a lot of foreclosures coming on the market soon, and having the cash would be better for him than just another house. But that's up to him, though. I can't speak for him. But because of all these things and the fact that now we've got an insurance company dictating to us how we're supposed to live and how our neighborhood is supposed to be comprised. It's not Mr. McGuire, it's that insurance company, believe me. And I'm not happy about it. None of the neighbors are happy about it. A lot of people didn't show up because it's hard to get people motivated sometimes. But the insurance company is doing it clearly for financial reasons. That's their only motivation. Any insurance company is make a profit. They don't care if it hurts the neighbors or the neighborhood. They did no inquiry whatsoever into how it'll affect anyone else. And it will affect us all negatively and I don't want to cover the ground that someone else has already covered, but you have a place that's licensed for 5 people, 2 of them all on the alley. How many motor vehicles is that going to be? It's going to be more in the street, more in the alley, because there isn't parking to cover it. And I don't think there could be. If they propose a single family dwelling there, I don't think any of us would be here, because it would blend in with the character of the neighborhood. I don't know if you could put that graphic back up, but I can point out where the other duplexes in the neighborhood are. And they're smaller, they're 1-story, and they're on bigger lots with a parking lot behind them, because they're visible from my front window. And they don't have any of the problems. They're not cramped. They don't have, they've got room for all the vehicles of everybody that lives there. It seems to me that everybody in the neighborhood would be much better off if this special use permit were denied, and even Mr. McGuire himself. So with that, I respectfully request that you deny the special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to comment? I don't see anyone here in person that wants to comment. Is there anyone on Zoom or other electronic means that wants to comment?
I don't see anyone on email. Oh, yes, I do. Hang on. Okay, we have Shaler Lund at 1006 Elm Street, indicating that this is on SPR 23-2 and SPR 2303, so this particular case. I'd like to comment that I support the Anderson family as well as the neighborhood in their concerns regarding the 1006 Bruce Street duplex permit. I, as a neighboring household, do find concern with the amount of traffic and the high number of 911 phone calls to this address. In the past, we have noticed issues at the residence and do worry that the duplex will be even more of a worry to the safety and privacy of our households in the neighborhood. So that came through the email feed. I did not see anyone with a hand up on Zoom, and unfortunately, given our experience with Manuela, I'm not sure that I could pipe them in if we did, but they could certainly, as a reminder, if there are questions or comments, they could certainly access the email, and I can make sure that those emails are read to you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, I will close public comment and open up discussion. Does anyone have any thoughts on this hearing?
Go ahead. You'll go ahead and start.
Just kind of the violations that were brought to by some of the neighbors. I'm assuming those have been vetted through those emails. I know there was a couple, I'm not going to say them verbatim, but that it didn't comply and things like that.
Currently, there are no open-ended, unresolved violations that we know of, at least through our code enforcement system. In terms of law enforcement or other public safety calls, et cetera, we don't have access to that through our system, so I can't speak to that aspect.
I just wanted to bring it up because I do appreciate everyone's candor here and their concerns and all that, so I just want to make sure those are being met. Thank you.
You done?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I was going to wait until you started talking.
Yeah, I think this is a really complicated issue, actually. I think some of the stuff we go over, the criteria we look at for granting a special use permit, some of the issues you have that are the toughest are ones that aren't part of the criteria that we can consider. It sounds like a lot of this is code enforcement issues. So I think the only criteria we can really look at are the ones that are applicable to you guys and your concerns are number 5 and number 4 of our criteria. The special regulated use shall not interfere with the general enjoyment of the surrounding area. But also when we're considering this, we're considering it as is the duplex, not necessarily who will live there. Is that the criteria we're looking at? And then number 5, the applicant shall indicate how the special use or special regulated use will not have an adverse impact on the surrounding neighborhood within 300 feet. And again, we will consider the duplex itself, not who may or may not occupy the residence at that time. So I don't know really how to answer those, because clearly the residents you've had there before have not been great for your neighborhood. And I understand that. I used to live with just off student housing, and it was really hard there too with noise and that kind of thing. So I don't really know how. I'd love to hear from the other commissioners, because I'm not sure what I want to do about this, because it could be you could have some great neighbors there. Or if this was a duplex, but it was owner occupied, it might be fine. It could be that the renters are fantastic, but we just don't know. You don't know that, and that's not something we can really consider in our vote. So I'd welcome anybody else's comments.
Just want to echo what my fellow commissioner said. It does sound much of like a tenant issue, and I can, I guess there's some distrust there with you and Mr. McGuire, which you brought up. No, you're fine. But just as my fellow commissioner said, these are more of just kind of non-tenant issues, code enforcement issues that have been kind of echoed over there, and it doesn't really affect our vote, unfortunately. We are sympathetic because, I've lived in apartments before where there was nosy neighbors and all that, and I can completely understand that, but it's not something we really look at when we vote, so I just wanted to kind of echo that sentiment.
Move to approve SUP 2302, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall ensure that the proposed landscape covers at least 30% of the first lot layer as defined in the zoning ordinance, and that such landscape complies with section 154.413. 2, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of building safety, and public works.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Just to be safe, let's do a roll call vote.
All right. We can do that.
Thank you.
Find your list here. All right, roll call. Devaney?
Nay.
Friedrich?
Aye.
Havelez?
Aye.
Honig?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Leash?
Aye.
Nicholas?
Against?
And Ortman.
Nay.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is SUP 2303. Mr. Murdeza?
All righty. So the next case is 1707 South Mission Street. Zoning district is CD5. It's SUP 23-03. So in this particular district, residential and dwelling uses are prohibited on the ground floor of buildings within these areas. That isn't germane to this particular application, but it is a special requirement in CD5. So future land use is listed as mixed use medium. You guys okay?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay. The request is for a special use permit for an adult use marijuana retailer. The current and prior use was a liquor store. I believe it was L1 Liquor. Property owner is Lacaz LLC. The applicant is Mint Mount Pleasant LLC, and there's almost 6 acres here. This is a location or an aerial view of the location. It's actually part of the little mall in this particular location, and you'll see the building itself called out in a second. Currently, the surrounding uses are CD5 and CD4. 3 of the uses are CD5, which is mixed use high. CD4 is a mixed use low, which is a family apartment building, the Forum Apartments. But there's a hair salon, fast food restaurants, and basically surrounding this use, so those 3 types of uses. The location specifically is, as you can see, where L1 was located as part of that small strip mall development. This is looking toward the east from the parking lot. This is looking south toward Mission Street in the back of the building. So this should be a familiar list to you by now. Special use, it's permitted in the district, operated in a manner compatible with surrounding uses. It meets that. Most uses are commercial, so it meets that requirement. Won't interfere with the general enjoyment of the surrounding area. It's characteristics similar to other properties in the area. Won't have an adverse impact on the surrounding neighborhood within 300 feet. Again, meets that requirement, no adverse impact. Not hazardous to adjacent property. It's required to meet standards of odor control, which we mentioned in a previous application. So that is in place here, and they've demonstrated a willingness and a requirement to do so. It's won't put any additional demand on public facilities and services than what has already been occurring there in the past. It is consistent with zoning in that it won't substantially injure the financial value of the surrounding properties because it is a similar type use, being a proposed retail development. So special use conditions continued. They will have to comply with the state laws regarding marijuana licensing, and that will be a requirement or a condition of approval should you so choose to do that. They are not looking to co-locate, so stack grower licenses is not, along with a co-location facility, is not applicable here. Sufficiently set back from property lines. It's approximately 285 feet from South Mission and 105 feet from, I don't even know how to say that, by Aurelia. No visual connectivity. So the storage and disposal plan has provided, the applicant has provided a waste disposal and sanitation plan. So they have met the conditions required in that particular criteria. The applicant affirms that marijuana products will be stored within the retail facility out of sight or reach of the public in a locked container, so that complies with not being overnight stored, et cetera, outside. Signage may not depict marijuana products, et cetera. So no sign plan was provided, so that you'll see that as a recommended condition of approval if you so choose to approve. Odor control requirements, again, they have provided an odor control, they have addressed odor control, but they will also need to have the county mechanical inspector approve what they actually install. So that will again be a condition that you'll see in a bit. Not located within 1,000 feet of a public or private school, so they are outside of the exclusion areas that we have established. They also have indicated that they will not violate the times that they should or shouldn't be open, either open in general or with delivery, so they are in compliance with those requirements. They are located in the DDA, which is a requirement for this type of use, so that is met. Exterior appearance is compatible. It's very compatible, very similar to other facilities in that particular location. They're not proposing any changes to the facade, and they haven't provided a rendering because of that, so most of the changes will occur inside. The interior storage is arranged so no marijuana is visible. They've met that requirement per their application. They have indicated that there will be no consumption of marijuana products allowed on the premises. They did not provide a sign plan, so that would be a condition of approval. The sign obviously would indicate that there's no consumption allowable on premises. They have stated that surveillance footage will be recorded and stored off-site. That's acceptable with the requirements. They submitted a floor plan that the lobbying waiting area and sales area are separated from the back of the house operations, again in compliance with the requirements. It does not have a drive-through, so that, again, is in compliance. They are not allowed to have a drive-through. In this case, retailers are not allowed to have consumption or use of alcohol or tobacco products on the premises. They they indicate that no alcohol or tobacco will be sold on site. They did not indicate that it won't be consumed. So that will be a condition that they'll need to assert that, no sale, no consumption. Again, just checking the boxes here, so. So in regard to this particular application, SUP 2303, based on staff analysis, the staff has the following recommendation. The applicant must obtain an adult use marijuana license from the state and maintain compliance with the applicable state statutes and rules. The applicant shall comply with the specific special use sign requirements that prohibit depicting marijuana, et cetera. Comply with the specific special use signage requirements and post a sign stating that consumption of marijuana products are prohibited, and ensure that no consumption of alcohol or tobacco will be allowed on the premises. The county's mechanical inspector will need to approve the building's air handling system and find it in compliance with section 154.410.B.4, paren B and paren 7, and the applicant shall comply with the requirements of public safety and public works. So those are the staff recommendations should you decide to move forward with approval in regard to the conditions that should be attached to that approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murdeza? If the applicant would like to come up. Is the applicant on Zoom? Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can bring the applicant up. Hang on. I've asked him to unmute. He is unmuted. We'll see if we can hear him. Sir?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
And unfortunately, we cannot hear.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, did you call in? Okay, yep.
I'm sorry, you can hear me now?
Hang on here. Can we unmute this? No. I'll tell you what, if you call my phone, and I'll try an old school thing, so I can give you my phone number. Can you hear me?
Sure, yes, I can.
Okay, so 989-330. 989-330-0403.
Bill, you know this is being broadcast, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
4 more people now know your phone number.
Yeah, Friday nights, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm dedicated.
Move to make Mr. Murdeza public record.
Try again, please. It's kind of odd, weird. There we go.
Hello?
Yeah, I have you here. Let me just put you on speaker.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can do this. We'll give it a try.
Nope.
All right. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, my name is Fadi Kanaya. I'm one of the partners of Minton, Michigan. So thank you for considering us to come into your city, and I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? We don't appear to have any, so thank you. I will open up public comment if there's anyone from the public that would like.
There's no questions. Yeah, there's no questions from the commission? Just hold on.
No questions, correct? So I'm opening public comment then. If you'd like to come up to the podium and state your name.
George Tolas, 1205 North Lansing Street. Mount Pleasant used to be the oil capital of Michigan. I think we're going to be the pot capital now, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to comment? Is there anyone?
There's no one on email, and just the applicant on the phone here, so.
Okay, thank you. I will close public comment and open up discussion.
Move to approve SUP 2303, subject to the following conditions. The applicant must obtain an adult use marijuana state license from the state and maintain compliance with all applicable state statutes and rules at all times. 2, the applicant shall comply with the specific special use signage requirements that prohibit depicting marijuana-infused products or related paraphernalia. B, comply with the specific signage requirements and post a sign stating consumption of marijuana products is prohibited on the premises. C, ensure no consumption of alcohol or tobacco will be allowed on the premises. 3, the county's mechanical inspector approves the building's air handling system and finds it in compliance with section 154, 410, B4, B7. 4, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of public safety and public works.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is the public's last chance to make a comment on any topic. If anyone from the public would like to comment.
Just one more time. I think this marijuana thing is just getting out of control. There's like 3 or 4 more places going in front of Utterbine's old place, Battery Plus, the old Graphic Central. I mean, when's it going to stop? I know you guys have nothing to do with it, but I don't know. You know, I think they just open up the floodgates but they'll probably get weeded out sooner or later, so.
Sir, can you state your name for the record, please?
George Tolas, T-O-L-A-S. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Any other members from the public that would like to comment, whether here or online?
I'm looking, hang on. No one on email. I don't see any other hands raised or anything along those lines on Zoom, so no one here.
Thank you. I will close public comment, and next item on the agenda is new business, the MAP conference. Mr. Merdeza?
Yes, the city of Mount Pleasant is hosting or being a host location for the Michigan Association of Planning for one of their ongoing training sessions. March 1st is the date. It will be in the chambers here, and there are 2 sessions that are being proposed that day. One is, oops, got to open that back up. One is site plan review, and that is from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. And the other is a master planning process. So learning more about, doing master plans. And this is, by the way, this is open to elected and appointed officials as well as planning professionals. So don't feel intimidated or over or underqualified to attend. The master planning process portion of that, again, is on March 1st here, and it is from 4 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. So if you take both, it's a full day. If you take one or the other, it's a couple hours of time. If you want more information, you can contact Manuela, and because we're getting close, well, we are getting close to March, as much as I hate to admit how quickly the year is going so far. You'll probably want to contact her sooner than later to get signed up. And this is something that we, as you know, the city does provide training funds for the planning commissioners. And so this would be something that could be covered by us for you if you chose to participate. So wanted to mention that.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is to recommend a planning commission representative to the zoning board of appeals. So if someone would like to make a nomination.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Friedrich.
I would be willing to do it for one more year, but I'd like somebody else to do it next year. You can ask me questions about it. I can tell you all about it.
When does it meet?
They meet on, it's the week before we meet for planning. I think it's a Wednesday night.
It's fourth Wednesday of each month when there's a meeting, although.
Yep, and we only meet about the maximum 6 times a year, because we only meet when there's actually a case. So it's not a big time commitment.
Yeah, unlike in the past, when we were doing a lot of the nonconformity stuff, so that was pretty much every month.
Yeah.
Do we need a second for this? Okay, so does anyone second the nomination?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Oh, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. And would anyone like to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.